Welcome to Conversations from St. Norbert College, a program that provides you with insight on social, political, and educational issues facing Northeast Wisconsin. Now, your host for Conversations from St. Norbert College, the Dean and Academic Vice President of the college, Michael Marsden.
Good evening. My name is Michael Marsden, and I'm your host for this edition of Conversations from St. Norbert College. Our special guests this evening are Miriam and Jim Mulva, De Pere natives, who recently provided the very generous naming gift for the Mulva Library to be built on the St. Norbert College campus. Miriam earned an undergraduate degree in elementary education from St. Norbert College in 1969. A former teacher, Miriam has held a lifelong interest in youth and education and has been very active in the Houston, Texas area, serving on boards which deal with youth and the arts. In 2004, Miriam was elected to the St. Norbert College Board of Trustees. Jim Mulva earned his undergraduate degree in 1968 and a master's degree in business administration in 1969 from the University of Texas. He served as a U.S. Navy officer until he joined Phillips Petroleum Company in 1973. He is presently chairman of the board and chief executive officer of ConocoPhillips. Jim is also currently serving as the chairman of the American Petroleum Institute. Miriam and Jim, welcome to our conversation. It's good to have you here. Good to have you on campus.
Thank you.
I want to ask you, all the world traveling that you've done, you still seem to be connected to De Pere. Does De Pere have a hold on you in a special kind of a way? Something about the community that you want to share with us?
Well, I think I grew up here and left after high school, and we knew it was a very nice place to grow up, and we had nice families and parents that taught us a great deal. But it's when you move away and travel do you really recognize what a special place it is. And as a result of that, we've come back, and we thought it was important for our children to know their grandparents. The grandparents lived in De Pere, and so it seemed that at least every summer we would get back here. And so our family always knew De Pere well, and so it just seemed always a nice place to come and to visit.
Interesting. A lot of people talk about a love of place, a kind of in fact, the Finns in northern Michigan talk about a nesting place. They always talk about the idea of coming back to the nest. So the Finnish Americans, particularly in that part of the country, love to come back and to their beginnings.
Sometimes you don't realize how special a place is until you do leave and come back. And we realized that. And we came back here and said, this is beautiful. This is a wonderful place. Great people, friendly people. So they say you can't come home again? Well, you can. You can.
Any thoughts about maybe eventually retiring to the area? Is that at least being thought about?
That's a real possibility, where we could come back and at least spend part of our time here. We certainly love the summers here. We like a little bit of winter, but maybe not too much. So,
well, your careers, Jim and Miriam, have taken you a long way from De Pere, and you've traveled the world, I'm sure, many times over. Any particular lessons that you draw from those travels?
Well, a few things. Miriam and I, we talk about it quite a bit. We learned some very good fundamental things, first of all, from our parents. We learned very quickly the importance of family. We also learned the importance of good, strong work ethic. And we see that, and have always understood that from the strength of the people here in the De Pere and Green Bay area. Another thing that is very important to us is also the Catholic Church. Catholic Church is very strong here in this part of the world, and we look back and reflect on it. We learned a lot from our parents and from those that we lived with and our friends, and certainly from the Catholic Church. And
it's still very important, I gather, in your life.
It is.
From reading your biographies.
Little do we know how your roots pull on you, and they do pull on us. So I think it's very possible. We have a very open mind that when time is up, finish work with the company, which is possibly, about 5 years from now, and retire, why at that point in time we can consider possibly living here for some part of the year.
Interesting.
And it feels like home.
Well, that's important.
The minute you drive into town, look what's changed here, look what's the same. So it feels like home, and we like the people here. We no longer have any immediate family living here. They've either died or moved away, but we do have first cousins here, and Jim has an aunt. So we still have a few people.
Well, as I said in the opening of the show, you two have been very, very generous to St. Norbert College and have given the naming gift for the new library, and very recently announced an additional gift, and extraordinarily generous gift. What What is it that drew you to the library? You know, of all the things you could have contributed to, you focused in on that. Why the library? What's the connection particularly?
Well, I think there's several reasons. First of all, Jim's mother worked at the library for 10 or more years.
At the college library?
At the college library over in Boyle Hall, and she spent a lot of time at the circulation desk, too, where she got to know the students, and the students loved her, and she loved them, and so I think that had a little bit to do with it. Another thing is, I have an addiction. It's a book addiction. I love books.
Not a bad addiction.
I love books, and I probably buy more than I'll ever read, but that's another thing. And of course, it was a good fit for us too, because we're interested in education and we're interested in children, and a little bit bigger than children, the ones that are here. So I think that's kind of it, don't you think?
Yes. Well, I guess I think we stepped back, and little did we know when we left the De Pere area where we would go and what we would do, and so life has been very, very good for us. We've been blessed and fortunate in every way with a beautiful family, and everyone is healthy, and so we feel that's important, that we've been given so much that it's quite important and almost a responsibility and obligation to give back to, if we're able to. And so we step back, and De Pere and the Green Bay area is very special to us. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that it has a great deal to do with the formative years of who we are and some of the fundamental things that we learned. And so it's first and foremost, it gives something back to the community where you come from. Second, it's education. We believe very strongly in education, and we believe very strongly in the Catholic Church. So for all these reasons, we think it's very important, and it seems to fit everything. And it's not just St. Norbert Catholic Church, but it's also trying to do something for De Pere.
For the community. Because the library will not only serve the campus, but also the community and enrich
right.
the community and so on. So that is very important. You also see this, I assume, as the heart and soul of the campus, I would assume, that the library
Well, I think a library does become sort of a union, so to speak, for the students, and it was a need that was told to us that they really did need a library here, and plus this is my alma mater, so that was important to us.
And of course, the campus has never had a freestanding new building dedicated to the library. Mm-hmm. It's always been in another place, as when your mother worked in Boyle Hall.
Well, in a way, I always, when I went to school, spent many hours at the library studying. It was a quiet place. You could really reflect, and a good place to learn and to study. And of course, the libraries change over a period of time, but it seems like Miriam said, it's a center of the purpose of the college, which is education. And it's a good place not only to study and reflect on what you are learning in your coursework yourself individually, but it's also a meeting place for study and work of an academic way. And so in many regards, it really does become the focus of a college. And we were really honored and pleased that we have the opportunity to participate in that. We really are not ones to want to put our name on anything. But on the other hand, it's not so much about ourselves as our family. It's really a thank you from ourselves and our family for what De Pere, the Green Bay area, and St. Norbert College has meant to our family.
And a very generous one.
When I say our family, I mean our entire family and our parents.
Yeah.
And also, we had many study dates at the library. Jim had come home from University of Texas, and it was an opportunity to spend about 15 hours a day studying. So we would spend a lot of time at the library studying. So,
interesting. Did you know each other then all through college?
Yes.
Or maybe in high school?
No, not in high school.
No.
Our parents knew each other.
Your parents?
But I'm a couple years older than Miriam, and so I went to school at the University of Texas, and we met each other when she was just going into college. So we knew we were going to get married, so she was on the crash program to get done a little less than 3 years, and I had about 3 years to go, and so we knew what we wanted to do, and so that's the crash program.
Interesting.
So, yeah, we actually met at Legion Park Swimming Pool in East De Pere. My father was a builder, and he built mostly commercial buildings, but he did build that pool. And I was on the swim team, Green Bay YMCA swim team, for 7 years. And so I had a summer job between years of college of lifeguarding and teaching swimming. And Jim came swimming with his younger brother, who's 5 years younger, and they were kind of splashing, and people were complaining, and so I had to blow the whistle at him, and he came over and started to talk to me, and we went out 7 of the next 9 nights, and after our second date, I said, I'm going to marry him.
good story. I enjoy
true.
it. That's good. Now, Miriam, what did you particularly take away from your undergraduate experience here at St. Norbert College? I mean, you graduated in elementary education, apparently taught for a while at least. What do you remember most about your undergraduate years here?
Well, first of all, I only really had 2 years and 2 summers here because I went to Stevens Point my first year, and then the idea was to come back here and take a few courses in the summer, which I did, and I found out very quickly that this was just an absolutely incredible institution. And the second reason that I decided to stay here was that Jim was at the University of Texas, and that first year when I was at Stevens Point, every time he'd come home for vacation, it was the day I went back to school. So I would miss him all the time, and I said, well, if I'm here, at least I'm here when you come home because we're from here. So I grew up in a house just 8 blocks south of here, the campus, so I actually lived at home. So I didn't have quite the same experience as some of the students that would be living in a dorm. But I think the theology aspect was really very important to me. I think the finest course I had here was a course in sacramental theology taught by Father Francis Dorff, who's now in New Mexico, and I would like to attend one of his seminars. I was invited by Father Joel Garner to come out and visit, and I'm going to do that sometime.
We should explain maybe to the viewers that the Norbertines have a priory in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where a number of the Norbertines reside and work in the Spanish-speaking ministry in that part of the world, and have a very beautiful place out there, actually.
They have kind of like a retreat center as well, beautiful. And so they offer several, like contemplative writing and different courses like that.
So that was your high point of your undergraduate career, was that?
I think I think it really was. I think that was the finest course I had. I had really very, very many fine teachers. I felt like I got a great education. I continued each summer because I couldn't finish, if I didn't do that. Sure. So I had actually 3 years and 2 summers in order to graduate. So.
Well, I want to remind our viewers that you're watching Conversations from St. Norbert College. Our very special guests are Miriam and Jim Mulva, De Pere natives. I want to ask you a question which maybe you might be surprised at, because I guess I was surprised at it the first time someone asked me. Here at St. Norbert College, we talk a lot about vocation, and they mean it not in the religious order sense, but in the sense that everyone needs to discover their vocation. And I'm just wondering if you've thought about that at all as a concept, your vocation, Jim, which has taken you in maybe a totally unexpected direction. I don't know. I mean, as an a Navy officer, I don't know if you thought about going into the petroleum industry after you finished your tour. And yourself, from elementary education to working with Jim on all of his projects to traveling the world. Have you thought about that at all in terms of?
Oh, we've thought about it quite a bit, and we look back now. We were married in 1969, so married for quite a period of time. But when we first were married, I went to school in the Navy ROTC program, so the basic approach was that we were going to be a career in the military. And the first tour of duty was in Bahrain Island in the Arabian Gulf, and this was in 1970 and 71. And first time outside the United States ever for either the two of us. We flew on an airplane for a very long period of time, and the first night we ever spent was down around Saudi Arabia. What we found and learned a great deal about is a different part of the world. Learned that the Navy life was good. We learned a great deal, but I gravitated back, going to the University of Texas, to saying, well, I'd like to be on the financial side of the business and possibly for an oil company. And so when the 4 years were up in the Navy, sent out the resumes to banks and oil companies and started with Phillips Petroleum Company. And it was just truly a great experience. And we've lived overseas, 2 tours in London, and of course the 1 tour with the military in Bahrain, and put a lot of faith in what it was we were doing. And I think over a period of time we certainly understood the responsibility for our family, but then the vocation of working in a pretty large company like Phillips and now ConocoPhillips, a lot of responsibilities for what it is to provide energy. And also, pretty large company, we have many employees, so you want to do your very best to try to, in the right, proper way, look after, as best you can, employees and customers in a really good way. So that's probably the vocation, the family, and then the expanded family of ConocoPhillips.
Interesting. Remarkable.
Well, and for me, I think with God as the center of our lives, I think it was important to me to be the very best wife, the very best mother, the very best partner that I could be, and try to take all the pressure off of Jim by trying to handle everything so he didn't have anything that he had to do with the day-to-day stuff of just living. I've got very special interests in education and children. I've done a lot of tutoring. I was on several boards when we lived in Oklahoma. One of them was a Boys and Girls Club board, and I started a tutoring program for them and was their first tutor, so I think that was very important to me. My other really love are the elderly, and I was a Eucharistic homebound minister for 18 years, bringing communion to the elderly and homebound every week, and get very, very attached to people. They become part of your family. The last person that I had who died 2 years ago, I did her eulogy at the funeral, which was very important to me. So I think those are some of the things. Sometimes your life takes you in different directions. We moved so much and moved overseas that I wasn't able to oftentimes teach in these locations, especially if I didn't speak Arabic. So I did other things, other jobs or volunteer activities.
Very eloquent response to the question. Thank you. That was very good. Well, I think that one of our points of pride, I think, at St. Norbert College is that we do spend time talking about vocation in a broad sense, that people need to think about vocation and think about their calling. So thank you.
And what's important to you for your life.
Exactly. Well,
I think some of the things that we've learned pretty simple is to step back and assess, how each day went, or each week, or each month, and we know that every day we look back and you say, well, I wish I could have done something a little bit better, a little bit differently, and you just try to correct and adjust, and hopefully we can do a little bit better the next day, as we do what it's been assigned to us, but how we relate with one another.
Very good. Appreciate that very much. What do you do to get away from the pressures? I mean, your position has got to be at the top of the high-pressure positions. How do you handle that, the two of you?
Well, I'd have to say I like what I do. We wouldn't do what we do if we didn't like it. But on the other hand, I think the thing we really enjoy most, first and foremost, is to be together and be together with our children. And that's the most important thing.
And our granddaughter. We've got a 3.5-year-old granddaughter who's really something.
Wow.
So
makes life worth living, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, frequently we're together at some kind of function, a dinner or whatever, and you really don't get to talk. But we really plan and look forward to when we can get together and go to dinner by ourselves or certainly with children, and we enjoy that. And then certainly we all have good friends, close friends, and look forward to doing that too.
Sure. Just out of curiosity, when you talk about assessing the day or the week or the month, do you do that together or do that separately? Just out of curious. When you talk about,
I'd say basically it's separately, but there's times, Jim will say sometimes, why don't we just go for a long walk, 4 or 5 miles, and we can talk. I mean, it's the exercise, of course, but it's the idea we actually have some time we can talk. Because you almost have to make an appointment and say, I need to talk to you about 8 things, and you list them, and it's kind of interesting how when I sort the mail every day, I have his pile. You do whatever you want with that. If I need to do something, you give it back. I have this pile, which you do not touch. This is my pile. This one, look at it and give back. And what the other one is we have to go through together. So it's almost like you have to make a point in time to do that.
To make it work, that point. I wanted to ask you, if I could, both of you are very interested in education. You're obviously committed to it. You're obviously investing in it. What do you think some of our major challenges are? I mean, you're looking at us from the outside. I mean, I'd be interested in your perspective on the things that you think we need to face and deal with more directly maybe than we have in the past, or some future challenges that we're going to be facing.
I mean, challenges as an academic?
As an academic institute, as a college.
As a college.
Yes.
Well, I think certainly there's probably little doubt that the basic subject matter is well taught. But what is really important is the ability to communicate with one another, to relate with one another, and not just individually, but collectively as a team or as a group. And then another thing that's very important is to assess, get to know who you are, what's your, hopefully at an institution like this, get to know who you are, what are some of the things you're stronger at, maybe not as strong at. But I think learning to develop and relate and communicate is really important.
I would agree.
And another thing that's also in today's world pretty important, and that is clear understanding of ethics, what's right, what's wrong, and make sure you always know what's right and what's wrong. And I know we do this in our company and all, is to make sure if something is not right, you stop. If you're ever asked to do something that's not quite right, you know that you're ready to walk away from it.
Do you actually have ethical training for your employees?
Sure, we do.
Okay.
Ethical training in terms of making sure the subtleties of what is right and what is wrong. Any question, raise your hand, let's talk about it. Ever ask something to do that's not quite right, always stop, walk away from it. Life's too short not to do that.
Well, I
right.
appreciate that. You don't often hear that, though. You don't hear that kind of a comment being made. That's very nice to hear. And so on,
I'm not sure I could add a whole lot to that. That was really a good answer. But I guess I would say that every university is faced with fiscal challenges and I think diversity challenges. The world is diverse, and you need to have kind of a microcosm of that world on campus. So I think those are a couple of challenges.
And to get, I think, that's right, I think it is a huge challenge for us in terms of recruiting students, but also recruiting faculty and staff. In order to have a representative, population on campus, it's a challenge, but a necessary challenge.
Right.
Something we really do need to do. I wonder if you look back over your lives, and I'm not asking you to write a memoir, I guess, but as you look back over your lives, what are some of the values that really have guided you? You've talked about some of them, but are there other values that have guided you in your personal lives as well as your professional lives?
Oh, I think it's what we learned to begin with here in Pere from our parents. A good work ethic, always be honest, always be straightforward. The value of relationships, of your friends, never forget your friends. I just think
I think that's really important. Never, ever forget your friends. And I think another thing that's well-grounded from growing and living formative years here in the Deep Pere, Green Bay area is there was always an understanding of who you were, and don't try to be something or think you're any better than anyone else. Arrogance and egotism doesn't work very well. People don't like it, so just understand the best way of doing things from our approach is rather low-key. Arrogance, egotism is something that's try to make sure you stay away from.
Yeah, those are
and
very
being
good.
true to yourself, being honest, those are just, they hold you in good stead.
It's all pretty simple. And a lot of times I know we talk amongst ourselves and in our company. If you don't have integrity and health and things like that, you have to ask yourself what you're offering and giving
In return.
to one another.
So I say it's very refreshing to hear you talk about these things. What about retirement? You talked about maybe down the road 5, 10 years to retire. Do you have particular interest in retirement? Some maybe
Absolutely.
even projects?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Care to talk about
Going to
that?
see each other.
I'm coming up on 60 years old, and in our company we must retire at 65.
Required.
But I think that's a good thing to do because it allows you to get into other things that you have not had the opportunity to do or the time to do, and that's charitable things. Another thing I would like to do if we were to come and live in De Pere at some point in time, or whether it's De Pere or somewhere else, I'd like to know and understand the Catholic Church and the theology much better. So I wouldn't mind taking a course or two. I wouldn't like want to take tests, but audit a course.
Audit the course, right.
And to learn more. Take time to study and read and learn about things that I really wish I had more opportunity to do. But keep your mind, I think you stay young by keeping your mind in the game. And so it's important to give back and do some charity work and things. Another thing, in an organization, I think it's good to move on because it gives younger people an opportunity, and organizations need another set of eyes looking at things.
Interesting.
Well, once again, my loves are the elderly and children, so I would always be involved in some kind of volunteer work that would benefit. Usually the benefit is mine, but that would be in the way of children and elderly. So those are two of my basically loves.
Thank you. I want to go back for just a few minutes, if I could, to talk a little bit about your philosophy of giving, because at the very beginning of our discussion, you talked about the importance of giving back to the community. And this whole idea of philanthropy as giving back, as returning. He's very Norbentine, in essence. But could you talk a little bit more about that? Do you believe everybody has that obligation or that should have that sense of giving back?
Well, I think you give back different ways. I mean, you give back if you by your time and effort.
Yes.
Give back by helping one another. It doesn't mean you give back necessarily financially, but if you have the wherewithal, resources to give back, I think it's important. As I said earlier, Miriam and I, we both feel we've been blessed in terms of our family, health, our faith, everything about it, our friends. So we have, over a period of time and whatever, we have the ability to help financially as well. We look at that and we say, you know, that in some regards that's really not ours.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very important as a custodian what you do with what you have, whether it's your time or if you have some financial resources, it's important what you do with it. I think it's very important for us.
So good stewardship.
It's very important for us to, if God gives you many blessings and good things, it's, what do you, as a custodian, what are you going to do? And I think it's important to use whatever you have to help others.
Well, and everyone has God-given gifts, and so they have a responsibility to use those gifts as God intended. So,
and use them well.
Use them well.
And use them well. So do you have any immediate plans for any other activities that you want to get involved in, even before retirement?
No.
No?
It's, 100% of the time is working on the things for, you know, the company to grow it, develop it. And I know in the public domain today there's a lot of questions regarding, you know, the price of gasoline and everything, but we step back as a company and we're just part of a very broad, worldwide energy complex. And so it's important for us, our basic objective is to go to explore and find and develop energy and provide it to the consumers worldwide and do that in a way that has more moderation in its cost.
I'm wondering, what was probably your most surprising lesson about corporate America once you got involved in it at the level that you're involved in it now?
Corporate America, well...
And this is quite a journey you've had. You know.
Well, you meet so many wonderful people. I mean, it's been just a wonderful journey in that respect, but as a surprise, I don't know. I guess I didn't realize that it would take so much time. I mean, Jim works really all the time, and he's usually rather tired just because he just doesn't have any really free time to himself.
Downtime.
And you asked about things we like to do. We like to play golf. We like to play golf together, so I think that's something that we would do. And we like to ski. We're not very good at it, but we do a little bit of that. But I don't know, corporate America. I guess, you know, you have these visions that, oh, I could never fit in. I could never really talk to the people on the other. You have a different face to corporate America until you actually see the people that are there that you're involved with. You find wonderful people wherever you go, just wonderful people. They're always open to talking with you and wanting to show you their country and the things that are important to them. So it's been a wonderful journey.
Well, I want to thank our special guests, Miriam and Jim Mulva, for sharing their experiences and insights with us this evening. Please join us for future programs as we continue our exploration of the world of ideas. Until then, I'm Michael Marsden for Conversations from St. Norbert College.